I think I reversed it.
Nice. All right. So I'm going to be moderating you guys today. Thanks for coming back for lunch. So I think we should just start off, go down the line and kind of introduce ourselves and talk about your funds and what you do. And I'll just do my quick intro. I run Founder Suite. You can probably guess we're a software platform for startups that are raising money or doing their investor updates. We launched about 15 months ago, and startups have raised $200 million on the platform, so we're getting some good momentum. Ben.
So I'm Ben Naris, and I'm a general partner at Canvas. Canvas is the go-forward group out of Morgenthaler, a fund started in 1968. We're now on the second Canvas fund, about $500 million under management. Classic Series A and B, and very occasionally seed, Sandhill style, boutique venture firm. Before that, I was a seed investor for about 10 years, starting in 2007. Funded everybody from Lending Club to Zenefits, all kinds of really interesting, phenomenal entrepreneurs who've had interesting times lately. Then I was an entrepreneur for 25 years before that, took my company public back in the bubble in the e-commerce space.
Cool. Jennifer.
So I'm from Learn Capital. We're an education technology-focused venture capital fund. We've been investing in tech since about 2009. On our third fund, we've invested in all ages and stages of learning, so anything that makes someone a smarter learner anywhere in the world. Companies include Edmodo, Coursera, Bridge International Academies, Andela, VIP Kid, Class Dojo, kind of Learner Skill, General Assembly, and Udemy. So that's basically us.
Awesome.
My name's Eric Miller, and I'm the founder and managing director of Hyperspeed Ventures. We're investing in what I call radical breakthrough technologies and emerging technological megatrends. And that's so I've done investments in quantum computing, genetic engineering, and like space tech so far. I also will make investments. It's my own fund. It's a $10 million fund. So I'll invest in things I'm also passionate about.
Awesome. So we'll start off with a couple easy ones. Kind of give us your profile investment. How much you typically invest? Actually, let's start with you, Eric. Kind of go down the line. How much, what stage, and what do you look for in terms of traction or other key identifiers?
So I try to stay as early stage as possible. So I'll invest anywhere from pre-seed to Series A. And I'll invest anything from as low as like $25,000 to $250,000. And what I look for, it depends on the stage of the company, and typically I look for obviously really, really large markets. And
But some of your categories, I looked briefly at your portfolio, are bioengineering, quantum computing, robotics. Are you looking for traction, or are you looking for someone who's got an amazing quantum computing idea? And how do you identify winners in those nascent categories, I guess you'd say?
Sure. So I mean, I typically don't invest in ideas alone. So there needs to be something that's built, an amazing team, and I just try to stay sort of at the precipice of these emerging trends and find the really great teams that are sort of coming out of that. And I think that it takes a while for a lot of these trends to develop, so it's actually pretty easy to recognize them if you're paying attention.
Okay. Interesting. And Jennifer, how about you? What you guys are?
Yeah, I mean, we're so sector focused. We're very stage agnostic, and we're kind of not the typical behavior in that sense. We do everything from seed. We've actually even done incubation ideas, typically when we have a very credible founder at that point. And then because we're so sector focused and really the entrepreneur just wants someone who rocks education on, understands the intricacies of it, can commiserate with them about it, that we actually invest all the way up to about Series C. So we've written checks as small as $25,000 and gone all the way up to, low double-digit millions. And that's just because entrepreneurs they value having someone who really understands education regardless of what stage they're in.
And how much traction do most of these startups need to have before coming to talk to you? I mean, you're investing pretty early. Are you doing pure idea play stuff? Or are you looking for product market fit?
Yeah, it really depends. It depends on, again, like I said, if it's idea stage, then we want to see a really credible founder with a just great, strong track record and familiarity with them as well as the concept. And then, be honest, it has changed as over the last years. I would say even at the seed level, even within education, I'm sure you see this trend elsewhere, that the level of traction and the progress is more these days.
The bar is
The
rising.
bar is raising, and then, if you're in K-12 selling to schools, you better have a lot of traction before you.
Interesting. How about you, Ben?
So, there's a pretty big range. We're primarily focused on A and B, but there's always going to be outliers. So the financial answer is that in this fund, we've already done one $100,000 check, the smallest the firm has ever written, which I did because I was really compelled by an individual raising a seed round, got there sort of late, but really believe in this person and want to see how he evolves over the next year, to something we're in term sheet on right now where we're writing a $25 million check. Now that's a staggering range. So what's the norm? The norm is Series A, call it anywhere from 4 to 8, maybe 4 to $10 million, and Series B, probably 8 to 12, 8 to 14 million dollars. We're normally going to allocate between 15 and 20 million dollars to an investment over its lifespan, and then look at things within that in terms of how much it's going to take us now and how much it's going to cost over time. At the end of the day, though, like every other venture firm that we compete with, very ownership centric. So, in a Series A or B, our goal is to get 20+% ownership in the company. In a seed round, which is, to tell you how rare seed is for us, in the last fund, over a deployment period of 3 years, we did 2 seed deals, of which I did 1.5. In total, we did 15 investments. So it is a very small part. So when you think about what do we look for, what do I look for, because every person is different, I always need 5 things to make an investment, and then I need 6 or 7, depending on the stage. For every investment, it's people, 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 a great idea, and a huge market if it works. I've found that generally speaking, betting purely on people that don't have good ideas, that don't have big markets ahead of them, is not a great way to make money. There have been forward fumbles over time. Twitter's probably the preeminent example of that. But for every Twitter, there's about 4,732 where it didn't work out, and that forward fumble turned into nothing, and the company just got hired away. So that's a seed view. At Series A, add traction, and at Series B, add a lot more traction. The velocity at which you are accelerating is important, but it is really difficult, except in extraordinarily rare instances, to look at a Series A where it's all about the concept. At that point, you should have found product market fit, you should have found customers, you should be getting paid, unless it's a business that's purely based on the velocity of growth of the users, which there are still some. And lastly, I'd say the entire metaphor of Series A, B, C, and seed has changed tremendously, as you sort of alluded to a little bit. Right now, seed investors are competing with Series A investors for rounds. They're bidding at A's. They're trumping their own seed deals as A's. Seeds are getting raised at $4 million. I've seen seeds raised at $13 million. I've seen them higher. How do you call those a seed? I mean, they're Series A, except there's no board seat, there's no governance, and there's probably not even an equity term sheet. There's probably just some sort of note. So it varies, but the center, people, 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 great idea, and a huge market if it works, is going to be true for all of it.
Interesting. And how many deals will you do this year, do you think?
I mean, if I do 1 Series A year, that's about the right pace. Now that we are willing to do a little bit more in seed, there could be anywhere from 1 to 4 seed deals there, but
4 seed deals, 1 Series A would be a typical year for you?
A typical year for me would be 0 seed deals and 1 Series A, but going forward, I believe there's the chance to stretch to 1 Series A and 4 seed deals.
Okay. And Jennifer, how many deals do you think you guys will do?
So that's about, I would probably say it's closer to 4 seed deals, 1 Series A.
Okay.
Maybe 2, actually. We're fairly active.
By the way, this is on a per partner, but I'm just talking about as a partner, not as a firm.
Okay.
Obviously, with 4 GPs, you're going to do more than 1 Series A deal.
But that's still 10, 12 deals a year, maybe? Top 4 partners?
Oh, our whole fund will do 15 to 20 deals over the next 3 years.
Okay.
And that's deploying $300 million out of that fund.
Interesting. Eric, how about yourself? Are you spreading a lot of smaller bets? How many deals do you think you'll do 2017?
So around 15 to 20, although I just did 5 last month, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, you just covered 2 years of my work. Take all those deals and retire for a couple years.
Interesting. So, I think this is all interesting stuff, but what most people in the audience want to know is how do they get in and pitch you guys? Take it from a couple different angles. One is how do you, where do you get most of your deal flow? Are you sourcing from incubators, accelerators, et cetera? And then the other kind of angle is advice for these guys. And a lot of the folks in the audience, I think, are coming from outside Silicon Valley. A lot of them are maybe even from foreign countries. I've been talking to people outside. And a lot of them are pretty new to Silicon Valley. So two-part question. Where do you get most of your deals from? And then advice for folks in the audience to get in with you. And Jennifer, maybe start with you.
Sure. Given that we're so sector focused, I think we're again a little bit different in that most of our deal flow is inbound. We have more deal flow than we can handle. A lot of it comes from trusted intros. Our current portfolio companies, CEOs, management are actually an excellent source of new deal flow. They make great recommendations. We do have a website. People email in off of it. I think for every 100 that comes in, we'll take one. But with that said, one of my investments last year was one that came in off of that website. And as soon as he emailed me, I said, I know exactly who you are. I've actually been tracking you.
Oh, interesting.
Please come in and we'll talk at stock. And he was from Croatia. So
Very interesting.
we actually did 2 investments outside of probably a little more than 2 investments outside the US. And on that front, kind of just knowing who the investors are in this space and being proactive. I think you have to be if you're going to do a cold email, make sure it's worthwhile, right? The reason why we only take 1 out of 100 is because 80% of them are saying, hi, this is me, I want to talk. Like, I don't have time to look up who hi, this is me is. So if you're very succinct, you give me the exact high-level details, key traction, whatever is really important to get across who you are, what you're building, and what's the vision, then it might actually be interested in looking up who you are.
Any of you are taking let's take it in its funnel. Have you ever done a deal from a cold email, or have you ever even taken a pitch meeting from a cold over the transom?
I have. I remember distinctly regretting it once. It was truly one of the worst pitches I'd ever seen, and I couldn't understand how the person had gotten into my office because the filter in Silicon Valley is a relatively fine mesh. And I thought, how did I get this one? And then I realized it was a LinkedIn cold outreach that for some reason I decided to take. So generally speaking, I don't know many folks that do take that. By the way, I would assume that in most cases it's 1 out of 100 that you even look at having talked to you. Because one thing everybody should understand is that I just came from another panel on a similar topic in the mobile space, and there were 5 venture capitalists, and they basically asked us all how many deals we saw. And the answer boils down to, I will see 1,000 pitches a year. And you already know from my prior discussion that I will do 1 deal a year. So that's not a 1% conversion rate, that's 10 basis points. Right? So and those were relatively filtered deals. Now it's made up of all the accelerators and incubators and demo days and one-on-ones and TechCrunch disrupts and all of that. But it's tough. So getting in in order of priority, if you have a founder that somebody has already invested in before, that is your absolute best door into a firm. Because 1, no one's going to refuse one of their founders. At least I can't imagine anybody would. That would be asinine. 2, that founder probably has a pretty good understanding of the firm and the people inside of it and whether there'd be a fit. So if they're going to be candid and honest with you, they're going to say whether you're worth having that conversation or not. Worth is the wrong word. Whether there's a good mesh, because not everything should raise venture, and not everybody should assume that the partner they've heard about is the right partner for them. The relationship between you and your partner is critical. So if you have somebody who already knows that partner, they're going to be a great conduit and a great sort of person to help you calibrate. The next step after that would be somebody that is respected in the seed category, as an example for a Series A guy or otherwise known to us, quote unquote. Then you get sort of stuck in what I would call, with appropriate respect, the service layer, accountants, lawyers, et cetera. They are a frequent source of referrals with a relatively low conversion rate to meeting, partially because their filter is not meant to be explicitly tuned to mine. It's more their clients. If it's a client, they're going to help in every way they can. And then after that, the idea of going in over the transom is you've pretty much given up at that point. You've exhausted all possible ways to find a warm in. Because, by the way, if you haven't exhausted all possible ways to find a warm in, you just made a huge mistake. And that's reflective of your pattern. And so now, maybe you are new to the community. I get that. That happens a lot. There's a lot of accelerators and incubators that get people that are new to the community explicitly because they don't have the network, and they want that demo day as a time to stand on stage.
Who is that? Who's making that?
I think now we're all good.
No, that's really good. So, kind of continue on that, and maybe Eric, this is for you. You know, the Y Combinator's, Techstars. I mean, I think we do a lot of marketing to accelerators. So, I think at one point I counted almost 2,000 accelerators globally in our database. Do you guys get a lot of deals from demo days and from accelerators, and is that a good channel to get into you? Do you go to the demo days?
Yeah, so I've a couple of the startups that I'm like really happy with have come out of YC. I just led a seed round that was a YC company, and they were like massively oversubscribed. I mean, it was, you know, so that was pretty cool. The quantum computing company came out of YC.
Okay.
So I mean, they're, you know, they have a great filter. They create really, you know, high quality startups. You know, but a lot of the companies that I end up finding are more because I'm interested in. So it's like getting the cold emails and getting, you know, sort of inbound is not so successful for me. I'm usually not happy with what I'm seeing. I do try to look at every single email I get in, though. Sometimes it can be very challenging. But you know, I will meet with people if I'm interested. I try to be as open as possible with, you know, limited time being a constraint. The thing that I do, though, that I think is I hunt for startups that are emerging out of certain sectors that I'm interested in.
Hunting where? Where are you hunting?
On the internet, everywhere.
Okay.
You know, but asking my network, asking people, you know, looking for companies that haven't, you know, necessarily had a lot of exposure.
Broken out, yeah.
Not necessarily in the Bay Area. I've invested in, like, I invested in a company called Unicorn that's based out of Seattle that was founded by, you know, previous Microsoft Ventures.
Kind of a presumptuous name for your startup, Unicorn.
Yeah, well, it was in the esports space when esports was about a $100 million market. Now esports is growing faster than any analyst has anticipated. It's like $1 billion this year. So, you know, and honestly, I found out about that company because I'm friends with the founder, but I didn't even realize he was leaving Microsoft Ventures to start it. And he posted on Facebook, and I saw the post, and I was like, dude, you have to let me in the seed round. And so, you know, I mean, so it just depends. Like, it depends on the specific, but you know, they're doing amazingly well now. Like, you know, raised a great Series A, and they're growing globally. They have offices all around the world. So it really just depends. You know, but I like to hunt. I think hunting I've found the best deals that way.
Interesting.
You know, make one comment on if you are going to email. And by the way, this is a great point. Like, we're all hunters. You know, you guys are hunters because you're going to, you know what this is for you and for us? It's a game of frog kissing. You're going to kiss 1,000 frogs looking for the one that turns into a prince and gives you money, and I'm going to kiss 1,000 frogs looking for one that turns into a prince as the entrepreneur that sees value in me and that I see value in that I want to fund. So we're both in the same game, just on opposite sides. So it's somewhat interesting for me as a guy who's an entrepreneur for 25 years to sort of sit back and look at where I get to play, because, you know, 97% of the time you're in this position of people coming to you and aggressively wanting to spend time with you and et cetera, because they're looking for the money. And then that makes you feel whatever it makes you feel. But then you find the thing you want and you're fighting like a dog in a pit against 7 other venture guys or gals to fund that company. And you're now back on the opposite side of it. So it's just it's like diving into ice cold water and then jumping into a boiling lake. If you're going to do a cold outbound email to somebody, and if you can, and look, the emails are posted. I think my email is ben@canvas.vc. Feel free. I do read all my emails. It's a nightmare. I'm up all night doing it, but I don't like other people to read my emails. So if you're going to reach out, the 2 things I'd say is, 1, an elevator pitch that is 1 line long. The very few number of times where I've seen something I've said, okay, let me learn more, is where it was very succinct. You know, we're enterprise SaaS for industrial IoT data output into blah, blah, blah. I don't know, whatever. Okay, now I know what you're doing. I can decide if that's relevant to me and I can go forward. So just make it succinct. I'm not reading 6 paragraphs. Sometimes you get these long, long, long emails. I will read the first line. All people will do this, whether they admit it or not, and decide whether I'm going to read anything else. So get it done in the first line and then go from there. Secondly, no response means no thank you. I'm more than happy to read an email that comes in, but I did not request it overtly. I did not say I can't see anybody except the first line in the audience, but like, you, send me this email. If I'd said that, I owe you a response. If I did not, then my feeling is I will read it, and if it's relevant, I'll respond, but if it's not, I'm going to hit delete. So that's fine. Your cost was hitting the send button because you're sending it to me and a bunch of other people. Just understand that that follow-up email you send and the one thereafter, what ends up happening is on the fourth one, it is thank you so much, but it's not a fit for me. I thought that was understood. Goodbye.
For the record, I've emailed Ben and not got a response. So
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure.
Damn.
And then just to put some numbers around it, like when we raised our seed round, I actually pitched like 200 people, ended up with 1 seed fund and 10 angels. But you know, you do that math, it's 5% of pitches turned into something. So interesting. So let's talk about that competitive deal scenario. You know, kind of back to the other side where you're hunting, you're chasing, and you're competing against 5 other VCs. Think of the most recent competitive deal you were pursuing. How did that startup create that heat around their deal? Do you have any insight? Start with you.
So I'm working on one right now that's in exactly that sort of situation. They've got 5 major firms that want to fund them, plus a bunch of seed institutions. I've got a great relationship with the entrepreneur, so I'm quite hopeful that we will be able to participate and add some value. The question of creating heat, there's only 2 speeds in fundraising, glacial and rocket ship. If you spend a long enough time in glacial, you may find your way into rocket ship, where everybody starts to care. But one of the things that troubles me in general, you know, you mentioned YC. So I've funded 6 or 8 companies out of YC over the last 10 years. I've been going to Demo Day, I think, since version 2. They and others tend to be a little bit obsessive around game theory. And this troubles me a great deal because, one, I get that you're smart and I get that you understand the concept, and I'm really happy about that. But if you're using on me, that's not good.
Can you maybe elaborate on what you mean by that?
Well, so, you know, there's often a overly significant concentration of time and effort on managing the process in a way that creates the illusion of something. You know, like, here's a great quote. Oh, you know, we're oversubscribed already, but I thought I'd take the meeting with you just because we only want the very best investors, so we're considering every option. That could mean everything that was just said, or we don't have a single offer, we don't have a penny, and I'm desperate to get money in. You won't know because you'll hear the same thing from all the entrepreneurs that came out of certain types of training. And so it's a little bit about gaming the process, which I despise. Because think of it this way, you know, I'm married, I'm very happy to be married, I want to stay married. Imagine that it took me 9 months to get the first date with my wife. Imagine that instead of spending 9 months of hard work to get my first date, I found a trick to trick my wife into marrying me. I used game theory and managed to work it all. Oh, I'm super hot and I got a lot of people who want to get engaged to me. And oh, if you would just marry me, wouldn't that be great? Okay, and now we're married and we're going to spend the rest of our lives together? Disastrously bad. Right? Like, you got to start on a strong footing. So I sort of push back against the concept. The heat brings itself. And unfortunately, there's no way. Many times entrepreneurs are entirely surprised by the amount of heat or lack of it around their deal because myopically they're very focused on what they're doing, as they should be. And they don't have a perspective of what the outside view of that could be at that. Sometimes it's timing, serendipity. You know, there's plenty of examples of things that, there's a great saying, being too early is the same as being wrong. You know, in venture, you have to be too early, but by the right amount to not fail. You have to be just early enough so that, you know, you raise your seed or your friends and family round so that you can hit the point that everybody else understands that it's hot just in time. So you can never do what's hot now, you have to do what's hot later, and you're the ones who are going to create that. Look, I think you should provide an honest representation of what you are, who you do, and how you do it. I was just coaching an entrepreneur as I came in, and I'm a seed investor, and he's got a term sheet from one player. He's got 2 other players jerking him around, not giving him an answer, but doing all kinds of diligence. And he's like, what do I do? I'm like, you be honest. I have a term sheet. It's a reasonable term sheet. I need to take it if you're not going to give me an answer. You have till Friday, and then I'm done. Here's the problem, though. That's fine when it's honest. A lot of entrepreneurs will do that when it's not. And then when the person senses it just a little bit, they just wait till Monday. And on Monday, miraculously, you call them back, and then they know for a fact you were lying, and that kills the relationship. So just be really careful about balancing your own. You are looking to get married. At least if you're doing Series A. At Seed, sometimes you're just looking at building a harem of dates. But at Series A, this person is on your board, and that meant to, I'm going in both directions. Maybe you're building a harem of males. I assume that's still called a harem, to be fair, right? I'm happy to be part of somebody's harem if it's a seed round. You want to find the person you can be with long term, and if you built this up using artifice, that creates all kinds of self-inflicted wounds you're going to struggle with for a long time.
It's, so I think that's all good advice. Maybe Jennifer, if you want to expand on that at all, or, part of where you left off there is the guy that has one term sheet. You said, be honest, you got one term sheet, two other guys are jerking you around. But from my experience, it's, 80% of the work to get that first term sheet, right? That's the hardest thing to get. So I don't know, Jennifer, when you're working with some of your portfolio companies raising their next round, how do you get that fire lit, right? So they're getting a term sheet that they can use as a catalyst. I don't know, any other additional tips on kind of how to get momentum or heat around a deal that you've seen work either with your companies or work on you?
Work on us. No, I mean, I would agree and reiterate what Ben says. I don't think you can do anything that's not sincere, right? It's not authentic. And if there is authentic interest, it will surface. If there is authentic interest, then you can do things such as creating points of action, right? Like forcing people into a point where they need to decide yes or no. And I think that's an important skill to do, but you can't do that without authentic interest involved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's much more to add to it than that.
If if someone's reaching out to you and they have a term sheet and they say we're running a process and we're, looking to close this round by June 6th, does that get you to move faster, or do you run on your own timeline?
Given our level of interest, it depends on how we respond.
Sure.
Right? So if you say it's hard deadline Friday, let me know yes or no, and we really want to be on this deal, we will make a decision by Friday.
Mm-hmm.
If we are somewhat on the fence about it, or we're still trying to better understand the opportunity ourselves, we'll potentially let that timeline pass and see what the response is after Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and to see whether or not there's still potential.
This assumes, by the way, that one of us is already working on the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have an entrepreneur that will use I have a term sheet as a trigger to starting a conversation, which
Yeah.
I find incredibly difficult because it does take a certain amount of time. I mean, when I used to do seed, I would often, in fairness, do exactly that. If I had an entrepreneur that got an unsolicited Series A term sheet from somebody that I thought was good but not perfect, I would reach out to people I thought were perfect and say, look, I know it will be tough, but I've got an entrepreneur that has a term sheet. And by the way, using people that can back channel for you is entirely rational, reasonable, and fair. Because it's a lot easier when I was a seed investor for me to say to my friend, I can't tell you who, but you'd respect this player, do the work now so you can make a decision, than for the entrepreneur to say it. Because in some ways, it's not that you're giving up a confidence if you haven't signed it yet. If you've signed it, then that's a different issue. But you don't want to go in with, as a starting point, hey, I've got a term sheet from Bob, but I'm looking for the best possible deal. I'm shopping it around. Can you guys work on this really fast and get it done? There's lots of reasons why that's bad.
Well, I think that the main kind of also takeaway from what Ben's saying is that you should, or at least I appreciate starting conversations with entrepreneurs before they're raising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's much,
How
much
far in advance? So if someone wants to raise money from you, when should they start a dialogue with you, and what should that dialogue look like?
I think that I'm open to a dialogue. It doesn't have to be 6 months before you're raised, or it doesn't have to be 3 months before you're raised. I'm open to beginning a dialogue with anybody that I think is creating an interesting business at any point in time, and I like the ability to get to know the entrepreneur, understand what their goals are, and that also helps me, right? When I take it to the other partners and just say, are we interested in this deal? Yeah, I've been talking to this entrepreneur for 6 months. I'm talking to them for a year. They said they were going to do X, and they did X. I think that's a very helpful point, and I think it's much easier to have that discussion if you have an existing idea of what this company is than, I just met this entrepreneur, they have a term sheet, they want a decision by Friday.
Sure.
Most likely that deal will not get done.
Should that entrepreneur be sending you like a monthly update, or just giving you a buzz every couple of months and with a, status update? I don't know.
Yeah,
The
I
warm-up.
get added to monthly, quarterly, that's fine, updates.
It's a delicate balance, though,
Yeah.
because I used to take a pretty polar opposite view of this when I was doing seed. My attitude was, don't talk to people until you are interesting enough for them to care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go in, let's say, have a coffee with a traditional VC and they're not ready to bid on this, the likelihood is they're not going to be interested in considering bidding on it for at least another 6 months, because that's how long it's going to take before they really care whether you've made any progress. Because if they believed in the progress you said you were going to make, they already would have shown more interest. We all want, this is the difficult thing, we all want to get to know the entrepreneurs early. The problem is the word "the." Okay, it's not, we want to get to know 1,000 entrepreneurs so we can figure out which one we're going to invest in and spend lots of time with them over the next 12 months, because that's physically impossible. It's we want to be lucky enough to have done the work so well that we found the entrepreneur that ultimately will be the awesome one and spent time with that person. Incredibly, incredibly difficult to do. 2 quick stories. I had a friend of mine that when I was providing seed deal flow for Series A, half the companies I funded raised Series A, and I was usually the introducers of those. And he said, Ben, this is great. We didn't have a lot of time here. They did the deal, but like, I'd love to get to know your entrepreneurs earlier. I'm like, no, you don't. You want to know the entrepreneurs the minute they're interesting. You want to know the entrepreneurs you want to fund backwards in time. Because otherwise you'd come to all the events I do and meet all these entrepreneurs early and spend all this time. You're not going to do that. You're not going to get to know 80 entrepreneurs so you can fund one of them. It's this mental gyroscope that traditional venture folks do more than seed, I think, of, oh, why didn't I meet them earlier? They forgot about the other 999. They said, why didn't I meet Bob, the one that I funded? What I will tell you is, like, when I take a meeting, my goal is either to give somebody a pass in the meeting. If there's a reason I can't fund somebody, I want to say that in the very first meeting because I do not want to waste their time. If I scheduled an hour with them, I will give them the hour. If 15 minutes in I know it's a pass, I will tell them and offer the rest of the time for whatever they want. Curating their deck, giving them feedback, talking about life experiences, buying them food, doesn't matter. They're entitled to the hour. I can't say yes in one meeting, but what I can say is I want to spend more time with you. And that can move on to multiple meetings and meeting the partners and thinking if we can get there. The highest level beyond doing a deal for me, though, is I actually want to spend time with you again. I want to take you out to lunch once a month and stay in touch. Right now, based on the last 18 months of work, I have 4 people on that list. 18 months times 1,000 a year means out of 1,500 companies, I'm taking 4 people out to lunch once a month. I do like to stay in touch. It's a pretty narrow filter.
Anything to add, or can we open it up to some audience Q&A?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing that Ben was talking about earlier with the game theory things, I think that is a really common thing these days. And I think there's a really fine line between information asymmetry, which is actually really important when you're raising your round, when you're negotiating with investors early on, for the entrepreneur at least, and then transparency in terms of actually telling the truth. And that's incredibly important because if I am negotiating with an entrepreneur and I find out that they've basically told a white lie or they're in a gray area in terms of the truth, it's over. I'm not gonna, you can't trust them anymore. And so in terms of building momentum, so I just led the first seed round that I've ever led before. Recently, it was a company called Kylie AI out of YC, and it was really sort of a fun experience. And so I'd fundraised before, and obviously participated in a lot of the rounds, but I never led one. So it's interesting because a lot of investors have the mentality, especially at the seed stage when there isn't one person coming in and just writing the whole check or a huge part of the check, that, well, who else is involved, who else is in, sure. They don't want to get in yet until other people are in. So it's this game of cat and mouse that the entrepreneur has to play. And so that's kind of where the whole, oh, we're oversubscribed, but really there's no one in the round yet. That's where that comes from, because there's a problem of sort of starting the flame at the beginning. So I like to jump. I try to, when I find a company that I really like, I like to jump in and write the biggest check that I feel is appropriate for, and try to start it for them.
Awesome.
And that's sort of what I did with this startup, and then start making phone calls. And I think within a week and a half or something, they had hit their $1 million raise, and then now they're at 1.6 million. And it's they have to turn investors down.
Nice position to be in.
Yeah.
Can I respond to Ben's comment really quick, though?
Which
Okay.
one?
Yes.
In regards
Time
to,
is up, but yes.
I'll be very fast. So I think it illustrates that every single VC is different.
Right.
And they have very different motivations. And I'm going to say a slightly probably dirty world in the generalist VC world, which is impact. As an education investor, I care about education, people getting access to education at scale. And so there are a lot of different companies out there that might not fit our portfolio, but I think could create value within this space. And I'm happy to take meetings with that entrepreneur and spend time and think about how they can help create their, how they can actually scale their product to create meaningful impact within the education ecosystem, and potentially recommend them to another education technology VC who might have a slightly different focus and a different strategy when it comes to investing. And so, whereas, yes, I agree, everyone wants to be creating that relationship with the entrepreneur ahead of time. I actually want to create relationships and help entrepreneurs improve access to high quality education as a whole and
Yeah.
help. And so there's an ecosystem aspect that I take to my meetings as well. But I think that just reflects a slightly different focus and a slightly different agenda because of the different types of VCs that exist. And you're trying to find, it's a marriage, precisely as Ben says. And you want to find the right partner.
By the way, just in fairness, I know we're out of time. On the first date we have, you still get the whole date. I'm still buying you dinner. So I also want to, my attitude is, you're dedicating your life to being an entrepreneur. I have great respect for that. In 10 years of doing this, I've met 2 assholes. That's stunning.
That's a low
1,000
ratio.
pitches a year, and I've met 2 assholes that I don't want to be involved with. So I do try to do the same thing. However, I want to do it in that hour. So if I've got something that's a good fit for you, the thing I do now is, wait, how about Bob? Okay? And I do the intro right then. So in fairness, if I do end up sitting with you and I do offer something, I'm going to do it in the meeting. And after that, the second hour is about 10 times harder to get. But if I can get you to people while I'm spending time with you, I always want to give value, whether that's through an insight that I learned or anything else or a connection I can make.
Okay, I have to rein this in. Do we have 1 or 2 audience Q&A? Nima, do they have a microphone? Or?
Yep.
Yes, sir, right in front.
I have a question regarding you hunting for startups to fund them, right? What if I am a startup that doesn't need funding, but I am ready to sell licenses to startups that need to be funded? So can you act as a liaison among our startup and new startups that need money to implement our technology and build power stations?
So you want to use investors as a sales channel? Is that what you're saying?
Something like that. Not just sales channels, just people who will help new startups to buy our licenses and build fantastic power plants.
Do you guys know?
I will answer that really quickly because I've been on the side trying to sell through investors previously as a consultant and now as a software, selling fundraising software. It doesn't work. You can't sell through VCs. They're just, taking too many meetings with entrepreneurs. I've tried that for 10 years. And
So
so
the
I
only
wouldn't waste the
caveat
time.
would be if you're in a meeting with somebody anyway and they have a portfolio company you're a fit for and you can just say, hey, can you make that introduction? But it goes back to if it's in the hour, great. Sure, Bob would really love this. Let me connect you guys. After that, tough.
Do we have time for one more?
One more.
Oh, let's see. Back there, please.
Hi. Thank you so much for your time. Very helpful insights. I just had a question about the food industry. What are you guys' emotions around food and the number of food startups that have come? Where are the VC world thinking right now?
So I think it's an incredible industry. I think I'm also 95% vegan. I think that currently there's a huge problem with the sustainability of the way that we currently consume food. And there's a revolution that's happening that will continue to happen for the next 10 years at least in terms of using plant-based proteins to and bioengineering, everything from genetic engineering of crops to robotics to automate sort of the entire process on the farm side, and also the sort of molecular and bioengineering that's happening to produce new types of food. And I'm actually really interested in that space. So if you have a really cool startup, then I'm interested in talking to you about that.
Do you want to give your email out or?
I just
Come back to that.
Track him down. You're a hustler. You're a founder. You're a hustler. You can figure out how to reach his email. It's not too hard.
or just
Any other thoughts on food, or should we wrap it up?
I'm a freelance food and wine writer as well. I've written for a bunch of print publications and I do restaurant reviews. So when you do your research on people and you see something like that, it's a double-edged sword. I actually have a hard time believing there are meaningful venture scale opportunities in food or wine. Now, more recently, there have been a lot of variations on the theme, everything from delivery to Soylent, which is to me a rehashed version of something that happened when my father was trying to lose weight and bought a bottle of liquid protein that he chugged down every day because it gave him the minimum nutrients. Didn't work then. I don't see why it'll work now, and it doesn't seem like it's good for sustainable human endeavor. I'm 95% omnivore, and then I'm 5% vegan. But here's sort of the ultimate answer to you, or actually to anybody. So a couple people asked me over the last couple of weeks, what am I excited about right now? And I thought about it a lot, and other than my own startups that I am extremely excited about, nothing. Like, nobody has walked in with something that's made me say wow in a long time. And I have a very simple belief about entrepreneurship. I don't know what's coming. You do. And one of you, perhaps, has something that when you come in and say, this is what you're going to do, I just say wow. And that is my quest every single day, is to find someone that gets me to say wow. And if that wow is in food, then I'd be surprised, but who knows? That's what I'm here for, is to get surprised. In fairness, because I'm the guy that has to take off immediately, I am ben@canvas.vc. Since I normally stay around and hear all the pitches, but I have a board meeting I can't skip. If you want to tell me what you're doing in one line, I am more than happy to read it. Didn't say respond.
Okay, well, so I'm Eric, E-R-I-C-K.
All right, there we go.
At hyperspeed.com, so yeah.
Jennifer?
Jennifer at LearnCapital.com.
Okay, all right.
There you go. You get
Good job.
ultimate
All right,
spam.
let's have a round of applause for these guys. Okay, that's it. That's a wrap.
Thank you, guys. A couple announcements. So just to prove to you that